Powered by the Montana Television Network. This is the 5:30 News on Q2, Montana's news leader.
Good evening and thanks for joining us. I'm Russ Riesinger. Janelle's on assignment tonight. Sub-zero wind chills are on tap for tonight, and not just here. Much of the country is feeling the freeze. Parts of Montana could see those temperatures drop to more than 30 below zero. In just 10 minutes outside in that kind of weather, frostbite is almost certain. Joined now by Bob McGuire. And Bob, these wind chills really no joke at all. Where are we seeing these drastic drops?
Especially in the extreme eastern edge of Montana and a little bit farther east than that. It's a big old chunk of Arctic air that's moving in. As you can see, we have a wind chill advisory. It covers basically most of northeastern Montana and goes all the way down to the southeast corner of the state, including Carter County. And that's what we see from 11 o'clock tonight until 11 a.m. Wednesday. We could be looking at 20 to 35 below zero wind chill factors. And we're not kidding there. Now, as you'll see here, it's going to get even colder. By Tuesday morning, the wind chill in Billings will be 12 above. But over in Bismarck, it's going to be 40 below zero, 31 below at Minneapolis, 20 below in Chicago. But then the coldest air starts moving in out of Canada and in towards the upper Midwest. And look what happens then. By Wednesday morning, 37 below at Bismarck, 59 below at Minneapolis, 52 below in Chicago, and 30 below over at Omaha. We'll have the rest of your Billings forecast in a few more minutes.
All right, thank you, Bob. Well, Red Lodge Mountain seeing more than 50 inches of new snow in the last week. Well, that sounds like good news to some skiers. Made for dangerous conditions earlier this morning. Q2's Samantha Sullivan joining us now with more.
Well, Russ, there was a bit of a snow slide earlier this morning. The snow and the howling winds resulted in actually a massive snow slide earlier this morning. This is a picture from the slide from one of our viewers here at Q2. The avalanche stopped cars in their tracks. However, no one was injured and no cars were buried. Rick McGavery says he was traveling up to ski when he got trapped behind that slide. The snow covered the entire road, roughly a mile below the lodge. 9 inches of new snow fell just overnight on Red Lodge Mountain. This happened around 9 o'clock this morning, and since, thankfully, crews have been able to clear that road and get it reopened for visitors. Russ?
All right, thank you, Sammy. Well, yesterday was the 10th day in a row for reports of natural or human-triggered avalanches in Montana. More than 16 natural and human-triggered slides were reported on Saturday and Sunday alone. On Friday, a skier was killed in an avalanche in the Tobacco Root Mountains. Doesn't take much new snow and some wind to make slopes unstable.
As you can see, this is why you need to be heads up. Even if you aren't seeing signs of instability, got to stay off of steep slopes for at least a little while longer and give the snowpack time to heal.
Well, don't forget, the backcountry can be deceiving when it's covered in snow. Areas that look safe can actually be deadly. 500 pages of in-depth research on Billings' economic future. That's how big the blueprint for One Big Sky now looks. Over the weekend, the massive 500-page development plan was delivered to city leaders, and tonight we did some digging into the plan ourselves. But first, our Zoe Zandora got a chance to hear how people are reacting to the plan at a late afternoon One Big Sky information session. Zoe?
Thanks, Russ. Group discussions were held to allow the public to ask questions about some of the groundbreaking revelations coming from the massive development document, and it definitely has people talking. Can Billings afford a large convention center? Where would it be built? And where are we at with the legislative funding? The report compares 22 different convention centers around the region and Montana. Montana Station, as it's proposed in One Big Sky, would be larger than the Tacoma Convention Center and larger than the Provo, Utah Convention Center. Along with that, the report anticipates that Billings will see a 6% growth in population in the next 5 years, with the largest age group in the 25 to 34 age range. Yet the aging workforce is a motive for Billings to adopt One Big Sky, and if approved, One Big Sky could garner $1 billion in state reimbursement dollars within just 10 years of its existence. I spoke with Big Sky Economic Development Executive Director Steve Arviskow about the next steps.
Now the questions are bubbling up. What's the economic development tool look like? How does that work? What are the components of the Catalyst project? How will it impact my neighborhood? And what does the housing development downtown look like? How are you paying for all this? All those really good kind of questions. If we can't rely on a statewide economic development tool, can we use our existing suite of economic development tools? It'll be a much harder path. but we can't walk away from that important economic development strategy of the redevelopment of our downtown core.
The big question again, how does this all start? The Big Sky Economic Development is pushing for the legislative measure to help. We heard just today Billings lawmaker Roger Webb has yet to unveil his sponsored bill that would serve as a legislative tool for funding for One Big Sky. With 16 days into the 66th legislature, his measure has yet to get a bill number, a committee, or a hearing. This at a time when the legislature is deep in revenue talks. Russ?
All right, thank you, Zoe. An Arizona woman will spend 5 years in prison after she admitted to driving 10 pounds of methamphetamine to Billings for sale. Letitia Tyrell has pleaded guilty to possession with intent to distribute meth, according to U.S. Attorney Kurt Alme. Tyrell was identified by a confidential informant who arranged for a shipment to Billings, according to Alme. Back in June, agents learned she had arrived at a Billings hotel and arrested her. Agents found 10 pounds of meth in her vehicle. That is equivalent to over 36,000 doses. Tyrell told investigators she needed money and was supposed to be paid $5,000 for the trip to Billings. Alme says she told investigators she had rented the vehicle and obtained the box of what she believed to be meth from an unknown man in Phoenix. Meanwhile, a California resident is sentenced to 7 years in prison after prosecutors say he mailed meth from California to Sidney, Montana. Raymond Fitch pleaded guilty to the crime. The investigation began in August of 2017 when the Montana Division of Criminal Investigation received information that 2 people from Sidney had been receiving regular shipments of meth by mail from a source in California. The U.S. Postal Service observed a package addressed to one of them from California with a strip mall as the return address. Investigators searched that package and found 54 grams of meth inside, which is over 400 doses, according to Alme. Lloyd Barras, the man charged in the murder of Broadwater County Sheriff's Deputy Mason Moore, is back in a Helena courtroom this week. Now, this week is a continuation of a December hearing to determine if Barras should be forcibly medicated to make him fit to stand trial. Barras was found unfit to stand trial in June of last year by the Montana State Hospital because of mental health disorders. Today, the court heard testimony from a psychiatrist and an expert on substance dependence and personality disorders. The hearing is expected to continue tomorrow. No jail time for the former Roberts High School head basketball coach who pleaded guilty to a misdemeanor endangerment charge for kissing a 15-year-old female student. Instead, John Wayne Pejovich will go through counseling. He changed his plea last Thursday to guilty. Pejovich was charged back in August for having romantic contact with a female student last year at his home and at her home. He served as the school's boys' head basketball coach. Pejovich paid an $85 fine and is ordered to attend regular counseling sessions focused on establishing age-appropriate boundaries for the rest of his 12-month sentencing. Pejovich initially denied kissing or touching the victim inappropriately. The victim described both incidents in an interview with a Carbon County Sheriff's deputy as a boyfriend-girlfriend type of kiss. Just today in the Montana legislature, Montana's Superintendent of Public Instruction spoke on a variety of school-related bills moving through the 66th session. She spoke in support of Senate Bill 132, which would say students cannot give consent for sexual relationships with school employees. The state legislature Monday heard a bill that would ask Montana voters to decide whether to get rid of daylight saving time in the state. But it had far more opposition than support at Monday's hearing before the Senate State Administration Committee. Republican Senator John Esp of Big Timber is the sponsor of Senate Bill 153, which would put a referendum on the 2020 ballot to decide the issue. He said that many voters in his southern Montana district would prefer to have one time zone and not switch between standard and daylight saving time. But a ranch manager and lobbyist for truckers and electricians oppose the idea. And they say sporting events and practices in the spring, summer, and fall take advantage of light into the late evenings, and so does the tourism industry.
This bill would single out Montana to be on its own time for 8 months of the year. So the contractor with a shop in Wyoming is now having to deal with a time change just working between Montana and Wyoming. For the contractor doing business in North Dakota, already an hour later, now for 8 months out of the year, the time will be 2 hours different.
The committee will vote later on that bill. Bob Seger and the Silver Bullet Band take the stage at Metro Park tomorrow night. Staff at Metro Park are trying some new things to enhance that experience. Express security checks will be offered at the northeast entrance of the arena for concert goers with no bags. Electronic signs will offer some direction for cars heading into the parking lots. For those that end up with a faraway parking spot, golf carts will offer you a ride back to your car. Or if you're taking a hotel shuttle or rideshare service, you can catch a ride at the lower side walk of the arena. And with the show starting at 7:30, Metro Park got the okay to open the doors half an hour earlier at 6, giving attendees an hour and a half to get in and get settled.
4,000 or 5,000 people an hour is okay. When we have 9,000 plus people coming to this arena with the general rush hour traffic going down the busiest street in Montana and the bench connector, that extra half hour for the screening and everything that goes into it just makes a world of difference.
And for those of you not going to the concert, Dutchers suggest avoiding the bench connector and staying on Main Street as they plan to close off the connector after the show until the upper lot is empty. New restaurant soon to open in Billings promises customers comfort food and a style of cuisine that makes one feel at home. Construction is already underway for Odd Duck, which will open off 17th and Grand in the West Park Promenade next to Ganan's Flowers. Those starting the restaurant say all ingredients will be locally sourced. Head chef Travis Stimpson has worked in a variety of Billings restaurants, including Walker's, Lilac, and Local. He's teaming up with the owners of Yellowstone Fitness and Hardin Chevrolet. Stimpson says the food goes beyond farm to table, so he's calling it Earth to Plate, where patrons will find comfort foods that span the globe. They plan to open in the spring of 2019. Coming up on tonight's 5:30 News, over in Missoula, the Osprey baseball franchise is flying away, but now the team needs a new name. Find out how you can help. And later in sports, Scott hears from the Yellow Jacket men halfway through Mick Durham's first season at the helm.
You're watching MTN News with Janelle Slade and Russ Riesinger, Storm Tracker weather with Bob McGuire, and sports with Scott Breen. This is the 5:30 News on Q2, Montana's news leader.